عذرا بيروت.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. Lebanese authorities detain fugitive Salafist Sheikh Ahmed al-Asir at Beirut's International Airport after more than 2 years on the run. Former Prime Minister Saad Hariri lashes out at Hezbollah chief Said Hassan Nasrallah, denying claims that the Future movement is seeking to isolate MP Michel Aoun. And a ceasefire between the warring sides in the Syrian town of Zabadani collapses despite reports of a previous agreement to extend the truce to Sunday. Lebanese authorities have detained fugitive Salafist Sheikh Ahmed al-Asir at Beirut's International Airport after more than 2 years on the run. Security sources say Asir had changed his look and was trying to flee to Cairo with another man identified as Omar Abdul Rahman Talib. Asir, a radical anti-Hezbollah preacher, is wanted for leading clashes against the Lebanese army in June of 2013 in Abra, a neighborhood in the southern city of Sidon. The clashes, which erupted after Asir loyalists opened fire on an army checkpoint in the city, resulted in the deaths of 18 army soldiers and at least 40 militants. A military judge last year sought to death penalty for Asir and 56 others, including former pop singer Fadel Shakir, over the Abra clashes. Dozens of Asir supporters have gone into hiding in the aftermath of the 2013 battles. Some are believed to have joined rebel groups in Syria. Hezbollah chief Said Hassan Nasrallah fully backed MP Michel Aoun in his ongoing confrontation with the government, warning against attempts to break or isolate the Freed Patriotic Movement leader. He also hinted that Hezbollah could join the FPM's anti-government street protests if Aoun's rivals continue to ignore his demands for partnership in the government's decision-making process. The Hezbollah chief renewed his call on the Future movement to enter into a dialogue with Aoun to find solutions to the divisive issues threatening to cripple the government's work, mainly the security and military appointments and the cabinet's decision-making system. Nasrallah's remarks drew a quick rebuke from former Prime Minister Saad Hariri, who denied that the Future movement was seeking to isolate and break Aoun, and instead accused Hezbollah of fabricating what he called a lie to justify incitement against its opponents. Shortly after Nasrallah ended a televised speech on the 9th anniversary of Israel's 2006 war on Lebanon, Hariri tweeted, "There is an insistence on holding the Future movement responsible for a crisis that Hezbollah is contributing in creating." Responding to Nasrallah's call for partnership in the government, Hariri said that true partnership could not be achieved when Hezbollah departs from national consensus and insists on dragging Lebanon into neighboring civil wars. Justice Minister Ashraf Rifi was also quick to react to Nasrallah's speech, and he said no one but the state can impose compulsory paths on the Lebanese. The minister, who is affiliated to the Future movement, lashed out at Nasrallah for failing to call for a language freezing and diffuse tensions. Instead of creating delusional facts of isolating or breaking politicians, Rifi said he refused to be dragged into confrontation with rivals and urged the Hezbollah chief to reconsider his policies and prioritize what he said were Lebanon's interest by bridging the gap among the Lebanese instead of imposing what he called delusional formulas. A delegation of families of the 9 Lebanese servicemen being held by ISIS headed to the northeastern border town of Arsal to press for a meeting with the captives. The delegation, comprised of 12 people from 4 families, met with Arsal's Mayor Ali Hujairi to coordinate their visit to the outskirts to meet with their loved ones. The national news agency reported that Hujairi would task a representative to accompany the families to the outskirts of the town. On Wednesday, the relatives vowed to head to Arsal's outskirts and not return until they receive information on the fate of their sons. Officials over the past year have repeatedly said that negotiations to secure the release of the captives were on track and on some occasions indicated that the release was imminent. But families continuously express disappointment with the state's course of action in the case, as nothing has materialized so far. Arsal Mayor Ali Hujairi says the activities of Syrian gunmen have been largely under control despite the assassination of the commander of a Free Syrian Army unit that operates in the town and its outskirts. Speaking to reporters, Hujairi said the incident occurred due to conflicts among Syrians, and the residents of Assal are not concerned with it, as they are trying to avert security chaos in their town. He expressed belief that the incident will have repercussions among Syrians, but it will not affect the town's security. On Friday, unknown gunmen assassinated FSA commander Abdullah Hussein al-Fa'i in Assal. A ceasefire between the warring sides in the Syrian town of Zabadani and two northwest villages has collapsed, despite reports of a previous agreement to extend the truce to Sunday. The Sunni Islamist rebel group Ahrar al-Sham said in a statement that the truce collapsed after negotiations with the Iranian delegation, which aims at ending the military operations led by Hezbollah and the Syrian army in Zabadani, in return to seizing rebel attacks on the villages of Kafraya and Fu'a crumbled. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said rebels had fired about 20 missiles at two villages and also reported shelling on Zabadani. The town, located near Lebanon's eastern border, has been the site of intense fighting between rebels on one side and Hezbollah and the Syrian army on the other. Kayla Mueller, the USAID worker who died earlier this year while being held hostage by the Islamic State, was raped repeatedly by the group's leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi while in captivity in Syria. This is according to U.S. officials. The Islamic State said in February that Mueller of Prescott, Arizona, was killed when Jordanian fighter jets bombed a building where she was being held outside Raqqa, an ISIS stronghold in Syria. Mueller was taken hostage in August of 2013 while leaving a hospital in Aleppo in northern Syria. She went to Turkey in December of 2012 to work for a Turkish organization providing humanitarian aid to Syrian refugees along the border with Syria. And coming up next, Japan marks the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II amid criticism from its Asian neighbors. More details after the break. Welcome back. At least 93 people have been killed as a scorching heat wave hit Egypt this week. The state news agency MENA says most of those killed were elderly. Those who have died also include 3 patients at a psychiatric hospital and 3 detainees in a jail, both north of Cairo. The Middle East has been hit by a heat wave since late July. Egyptian summers are usually hot, but temperatures this week soared to 46 degrees Celsius in the country's south. MENA says temperatures are expected to rise around the country on Sunday and will reach 42 degrees Celsius in the capital, Cairo. The Turkish Coast Guard has released videos of dozens of migrants being rescued in the Aegean Sea off the coast of Turkey. Around 1,900 Syrians who received their papers left the Greek island of Kos aboard passenger ferries heading to Athens. Greece, whose parliament on Friday approved an €85 billion bailout from foreign creditors, is struggling to cope with tens of thousands of desperate migrants from the Middle East, Africa and Asia, even as it seeks to avoid financial meltdown. Elsewhere in Europe, Italian authorities say at least 40 migrants have died on a boat in the southern Mediterranean. The Navy says 300 people have been rescued so far. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has declared a new era in relations with Cuba as the Stars and Stripes flag was raised on the island. Stark differences remain between the two countries, however, over issues such as democracy and human rights. We remain convinced the people of Cuba would be best served by genuine democracy where people are free to choose their leaders, he said. In a country where the Communist Party is the only legal political party, the media is tightly controlled and political dissent is repressed. Kerry led a ceremony to raise the U.S. flag over the newly reopened American embassy on Friday, becoming the first U.S. top diplomat to visit Cuba in 70 years. More than 1,000 residents in north-central Washington state have fled their homes after a cluster of wildfires erupted around the town of Chelan, while fierce blazes blackened a swath of the drought-stricken U.S. West. Firefighters were also dealing with fires in Oregon and Montana, while crews were battling a wildfire near California's celebrated wine region north of San Francisco. In north-central Washington state, more than 1,000 residents were reportedly ordered from their homes after several wildfires erupted in the area, damaging numerous structures. Moving on to Asia, residents living close to the site of giant explosions in the Chinese port of Tianjin have been evacuated over fears of toxic contamination as new fires ignited. Reports say armed police were carrying out evacuations within 3 kilometers of the blast site after highly poisonous sodium cyanide was found. The blaze ignited again at the warehouse where the blast struck on Wednesday night, with several small blasts heard by reporters from the local news agency. Authorities announced that the death toll has risen to 85, with more than 700 others still being treated in hospitals. Japan has marked the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II amid criticism from neighbors China, South Korea, and North Korea as well, which bore much of the brunt of Japan's militarist march. Emperor Akihito and Empress Michiko joined Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in a memorial in Tokyo, where the Japanese monarch said he felt deep remorse over the war, a conflict the country fought in the name of his father, the Emperor Hirohito. The Japanese Prime Minister on Friday expressed utmost grief but said future generations should not have to keep apologizing for the mistakes of the past, and offered no fresh apology of his own. The legacy of the war still haunts relations with China and South Korea, which suffered under Japan's sometimes brutal occupation and colonial rule before Tokyo's defeat in 1945. Actor Johnny Depp, Star Wars creator George Lucas, actor Susan Lucci, and animator Andreas Deja were honored, along with 5 other Disney legends in Southern California, for their contribution to the Disney legacy. Depp was a surprise recipient of the award and greeted Mickey at the red carpet with a compliment on how well the iconic character was aging. Check it out.
You look very good for your age. You really do. How old is Mickey? She's 75?
Actor Johnny Depp and Star Wars creator George Lucas were among the Disney legends honored in Southern California on Friday for their contribution to the Disney legacy. Depp was a surprise recipient of the award and greeted Mickey at the red carpet with a compliment on how well the iconic character was aging. 1998 Disney legend honoree and actor Dick Van Dyke was on hand to perform in support at the annual D23 Expo. Van Dyke, who was supporting George Lucas, reflected on what Walt Disney could have accomplished had the luminary lived to take advantage of the era of computer graphics.
I've often said, Walt died before computer generation came along. Would he have had fun with that toy? Oh my God, he would have done things other people have not even thought of.
Other Disney legend honorees included composer Danny Elfman and longtime soap star Susan Lucci. The 2015 D23 Expo, which celebrates everything Disney, kicks off on Friday and runs through the weekend.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Lebanese authorities detained fugitive Salafist Sheikh Ahmed Asir at Beirut's international airport after more than 2 years on the run. Former Prime Minister Saad Hariri lashes out at Hezbollah chief Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, denying claims that the Future movement is seeking to isolate MP Michel Aoun. And a ceasefire between the warring sides in the Syrian town of Zabadani collapses despite reports of a previous agreement to extend the truce to Sunday. Those are your top stories for today. I'm Linda Tamim, signing off.